I want to talk to you a little bit about how to use things that are commonly found around your home or herbs you're really familiar with to help prevent and treat symptoms of respiratory infections, colds and flus, and to just protect yourself through the wintertime. So I do a lot of talks about kitchen cabinet medicine. Number one, I think because I was raised in an era where that's what you did. Number two, because it's so easy to forget these simple little tools that you have around the house. So let's get started. So cultivating wellness. We all know when we feel really well, when you feel centered and present with yourself, when you feel just connected with yourself and everything and everyone around you. So these are tools that are very easily available for all of us. And these are also the foundations of naturopathic medicine. I am a naturopathic doctor, and it's the premise of our profession is to use fresh air and sunshine and water and good food, nourishing your body, but also nourishing your mind and heart and spirit. Exercise, physical and mental, moving this thing around because that's what they're made to do. And sleep, number one, and at this time of the year as we head to the holidays, one of the easiest things to let go of. Love, and then purpose and meaning. You know, how do you connect with your life and feel like you make a difference? I think that is really important. So fresh air and sunshine, part of that is breathing. We have primary pathways of detoxification, and maybe you all know this, so it's a reminder, but our breath is one of our primary pathways of detoxification in our bodies. It's how our lungs expel toxins and pull air in and rejuvenate and circulate oxygen and other nutrients throughout the body. So breath. And not just breathing, most people breathe only from the very top of their lungs, shallow breathers. You want to breathe from deep in your belly. You want to pull the air in and let it out. And we all know that when we're stressed and you take a really big breath in and your shoulders drop, your mind opens up again, you feel a little more grounded and centered. So breathing, simple and easy to forget, trust me, I know this. Stress reduction, sunshine and happiness, not just vitamin D, but on a day like this, when you get up and the sun's out in November in Seattle, this is a good day. Yeah. It is a miracle. It's a blessing. It's a miracle. It's a gift. So, yeah. And what's really interesting is you go out in the sun and there's this whole chemical reaction in your body from your brain, throughout your brain, your eyes, back through your brain that spreads through your body. It actually stimulates the release of hormones called endorphins and enkephalins. And those are feel-good hormones. You release those all the time. You release those when you see someone that you are happy to see. You release those when you eat chocolate. You release those when you exercise. And they have an impact. Those are sort of what I call the primitive brain hormones that are released in our ancient brain and then stimulate the balance of rebalancing of norepinephrine, serotonin, and dopamine in your more frontal brain. So great thing to get out there today after this and enjoy some of this. And water. We are beings of water. We live in a planet of water, and we are beings that have so much water perfusing us all the time. And how many of you in the mid-afternoon have that sort of drop in energy? You've had lunch, you're back at work, your energy can sort of drop, your focus can drop. It's really interesting. They've actually looked at studies where if you drink some water, it perks you up again. Water is lubrication protection. It provides pathways, it provides carriers and molecules that can allow chemical processes in your body to start increasing so that you release more energy, necessary for the production of ATP, which is sort of the cell energizer in our bodies that we recycle all the time. We take these little phosphate molecules off and use them and then add another one. So, and for detoxification, clearing toxins out of your body. Your lungs need them, your lymph needs them, your liver and intestines and your kidneys and your skin all need water. Yeah.
Could you elaborate on protection?
On protection, so we all have little cushions, like our discs, bursa, cushions in all the skeletal parts of our body. Those cushions are dependent on water to have more bounce and give, so it protects your joint spaces. If you drink water and take a deep breath, you can actually measure your height taller, a little bit, and as we get older, a lot. Every quarter inch matters. So yeah, and for protection, because it also, water donates molecules and is a carrier for proteins and other substances to circulate that are messengers in our bodies. You're welcome. Trying not to get, and if you want more detail, just ask. Food, one of my favorite things. Love food, love cooking, love eating. Who doesn't? So you all probably know this. Proteins, carbohydrates, and fats are the main sort of substrates that we get from our food. They provide vitamins, minerals, and those vitamins, minerals, the proteins themselves, the amino acids and the proteins, all, and the fats, all break down in our body to provide energy, to provide the structure that builds our body itself. Every cell, almost every cell in your body is new every 7 years. This is not the same body we were born with, unless you're 7 years old or younger. So, but we replace cells constantly. And metabolism, keeping the engine running, keeping the little factories inside our cells producing energy molecules and allowing nutrients in, nutrients out, keeping the system running. And very important for immunity. So I put a few foods here that are really specific for immune system function. Berries, great food for us. And we live in a part of the country where berries are so available and you can freeze them, can them, preserve them, and eat them year round. Yum. And of course, fish, salmon especially, essential fatty acids. Asparagus actually helps promote detoxification in the body, as well as providing some minerals and B vitamins. And even the rosemary here. Rosemary is a great herb. We cook with it, but it's actually a really healing herb for your immune system and your digestive system. So, yes, rosmarinus. It's great. Whoop, went too fast. So you can get your protein from animal and vegetable sources. My standard rule is the less legs on your protein, the better for you it is, which is an easy way to remember it, unless it's wild game. And wild game counts as a no-legged or two-legged source because of the essential fatty acids that are in the game, as well as the higher mineral content of game meat, wild meat.
Does that include chicken?
If it's free-range chicken, actually, you get better nutrient value from free-range running around eating whatever's available outside. Yeah. And grubs and worms and herbs.
Is it because they're omnivorous? Chickens are omnivorous?
They'll eat everything.
Oh, I know that.
Bugs, I mean everything. because you're eating what they eat. So if something's kept in a cage and just fed meal, that's what you're eating. And it's, yeah, not happy. So eat 7 colors a day, or eat a rainbow, as some people put it. And that sounds overwhelming, but if you think about it, it's not very difficult. You can throw some berries in with your morning meal. You can have a salad, a big salad or a bowl of soup with lots of vegetables in it for lunch. Or you can, and then for dinner, you can have a salad with 3 to 5 colors in it, plus a serving of vegetables. The only way that doesn't work is counting corn and white potatoes as a vegetable, because those are grain, corn is a grain, and potatoes are starches. So they kind of don't count as the vegetable part. The palm rule, this is a measurement of the size of a portion. So you want protein the size of a palm. You want vegetables the size of 2 to 3 palms, depending on the meal and the vegetable, the density of it. You want the fat to be 1/4 of the palm. It's a really easy rule to follow. And your starch should be less than half your palm. It's a really easy rule to use for enhancing the nutritional value of your meals. And make sure your food tastes good. Who wants to eat something that tastes nasty? Even if it's good for you, who cares if you don't like it? It's like, life's too short to waste time eating bad food. So yeah, and eat foods in as whole a form as possible. Because the more nutrients are kept encapsulated in that food in its whole form. So it's better to eat brown rice than it is to eat a slice of bread. It's better to eat quinoa and make that as cereal than boxed cereal in the morning. Does that make sense? And you can play around with this. It's not that you have to be perfect all the time. It's following the rules, yes.
Repeat the part about starch of less than half a palm.
Less than half a palm, yeah.
I was just curious too, I've heard a lot about, not a lot, but I've heard that the extrusion process of cereals, creating puffs and grains, flakes, all these extrusions create kind of, I don't know if they do nature or the high heat, the high pressure, but it actually is quite toxic to the body. And so have you heard that? Or?
I'm not sure about the studies for that. I just know that you're losing so much of the nutrition, and no matter how much enrichment is added back, it's not as good as it was when it started.
Yeah.
So the toxicity, heating proteins denatures them. It breaks the bonds that create that protein molecule, and it can destroy them and actually even turn them rancid, depending on the process that's used. So you're better off eating as whole a form as you can. And we all have busy lives. It's sometimes challenging to cook a whole grain that takes an hour versus pull a slice of bread out. You do the best you can, but making a big pot of rice, keeping it refrigerated and using it for a couple, 3 days in a row. Quinoa cooks in 10 minutes. It's amazing. Millet cooks in minutes. Yeah.
We've seen these, we started to buy this hybrid brown and white rice.
Uh-huh.
And it's a lot easier for me to digest. The brown rice is kind of hard.
Yeah, brown rice is really high fiber, and some people do have difficulty breaking it down.
I was wondering, is it pretty good as far as?
It's less fiber and less vitamins, but if you can digest it and absorb what's in there, you're better off than if you're having difficulty absorbing a full brown rice. So quinoa is really easy to digest, real easy food. And yeah, enzymes and bitters. You all know about bitters?
I love bitters.
Bitters are great. Bitters are things as simple as lemon juice as vinegars. And you mix a little bitter with a little water. Like how many of you have ever had a Manhattan cocktail? So Manhattan cocktails are made with bitters. It has a bitter substrate that stimulates the release of digestive enzymes from your mouth all the way down into your digestive system. So doing a bitter, and there are herbs that are bitters, depending on what's going on with your digestion, if you have a lot of gas and bloating, you may want to use a bitter that has carminative or gas-reducing properties as well as the bitter properties. And chamomile is one of those herbs. This is chamomile right here. And chamomile is a great mild bitter that you can take a chamomile tincture, for example, and put some in just a little water. Always, any tincture or bitter, just a little bit of water as a carrier. And then sip that before a meal.
So what is the ingredient in Manhattans that make it bitter, and what ingredient can I look for in all?
Gentian bitters is what's usually used in Manhattans. And gentian is an herb that is one of the most bitter herbs around. It's, I'll put it right up here, I guess. I don't know where to put these props. It's one of the most bitter herbs around. If you put a few drops on your tongue, I should actually go get a sample from the dispensary so we can pass it around. Everybody can put a drop on their hand and taste it. It's amazing what it does to your body, how your body responds. So is Mei Ling here? Okay. Well, I'll go out and get it at the end and bring it back so anybody who wants to can taste it. That would be great.
With a paper wrap.
Yeah.
You can buy it
And there's,
at a liquor store
Uh-huh.
where they have mixers.
yeah, it's at grocery stores, liquor stores, and you can also get over the counter at a lot of stores and health food stores something called Swedish bitters, Swedish like Sweden, and also Sweetish bitters, which is a milder bitter that an herb company named Gaia Herb makes. You just look for a little bottle formula that says bitters on it and try them.
In your purse, and then if you're gonna eat something that's hard for you,
Yeah.
take a drop of it.
Just take a dropper full, one dropper full, squeeze the top, whatever comes up in the dropper, put it in a glass, empty glass with a little water. That's it. And if you're ever out at a restaurant and you're going to eat a big meal or a meal that has foods that are difficult to digest, just ask for a side of 3 or 4 shakes of bitters. They'll bring it out in a little glass. You add a little water, sip that, and there you go. Isn't that easy?
Does it have to be while you're eating or before you're eating? Or
It's
can it be
best,
after you're
it can be after eating, but it's actually best before you eat. After you eat, you want to do carminatives like mint tea, any mint tea, ginger tea, chamomile tea. All of those are carminatives and they disperse gas that may occur if you're having difficulty breaking compounds down. Yeah.
How far in advance would you have to put that drop on your tongue?
5 minutes to 30 minutes. It can be, but I find that if I do it too far in advance, I get a little nauseous because my body's then primed to eat food. So just a few minutes before you eat, 5 to 10, you order your meal, you get the bitters, you sip them. By the time the food's there, you're ready.
Just put them in hot water?
Hot or cold water or room temperature water. Yeah.
Yes, what were the other parts of the palm rule? You mentioned
Oh.
half a palm for starch.
Half a palm for starch, a quarter palm for fat, which can be salad dressing, whatever, the olive oil that you toss with your grains or vegetables, whatever the fat is, about a quarter of the palm. Yeah.
And for the protein?
Protein, a whole palm, like, and the palm is just this part of the palm. If it's fish, you can do a little more. If it's beef, you want to do a little less.
Okay. And you mentioned that with protein, you denature the protein when you
Cook it.
So is there a rule for how many minutes? Or hard to say.
It depends on the protein. You want to cook foods until they're safe to eat. And denaturing protein is a good thing because it does partially break it down, makes it easier to digest. So you want to cook it to your preference, but just within the rules of safely cooking proteins. Legumes and grains, if you cook the legumes, the beans and peas well, they're much easier to digest than if they're not quite cooked all the way through. Yeah.
And what about flesh? Isn't it better to poach and to bake than to broil and to fry and that sort of thing?
So the longer it's exposed openly to heat, the more you can create carcinogens with especially things like beef. So, which is why grilling is not recommended. But poaching, cooking with water, protects the protein, like eggs, for example. Soft boiling and poaching eggs keeps the yolk inside, which is the part with the fat. And it's a nice, healthy fat. It's actually a really good fat for us. That egg yolk inside won't oxidize. The proteins in there don't oxidize, or exposure to oxygen actually causes, it's almost like spoilage over time. Okay?
Scrambled eggs, I
Scram-
love them, but it's less than that, yeah.
Yeah, so don't eat them every day. Just eat them once in a while.
'Cause
And
it's oxidizing.
cooking over a lower heat to scramble the egg will actually help keep it from denaturing as well while you scramble. So cooking at a lower heat rather than a high heat with eggs.
Soft and slow, as they say.
Yeah, so braising is good, yes.
If you're doing the palm rule,
Yeah,
would cheese be a fat or more of a protein?
cheese is counted as a fat because it has more fat properties than protein properties.
If it's a low-fat cheese.
Then it counts as both a fat and a protein, but you wouldn't want to eat a whole palm of cheese, except, well, you would want to, but I wouldn't do it every day. Let's put it that way. All of these rules are more about the general rule for how you eat. And then there'll be days where you're going to want that fondue, or you're going to want the cheese plate after dinner. And there are actually enzymes in cheese that help you digest food. They're good for you. It's just eating a big bunch of cheese every single day is probably not our best choice, as good as it might be.
How
Yeah.
about the size and the activity of a person? If a person
Yes.
is 3 times as big as I am and works in a construction, would that
Yes.
serve him this amount of?
Their hands are often bigger, but often they'll have to augment the rule. So when I work with athletes, for example, I always have them eat every 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours. Just meal, snack, meal, snack, meal, snack, because they are metabolizing faster than they can pull it in. So for someone who has an office job and works out at the gym 3 days a week, palm rule works really well. Okay. So you always have to take these rules and apply them to the individual. Apply them to the person, to yourself. Look at yourself and go, I know how my body responds to eating. And then alter them for you. Although I think 7 colors a day is a really good rule for everybody across the board. Yeah, exercise. So you want to do both active aerobic exercise and non-aerobic exercise. Aerobic exercise is really good for increasing your metabolic rate, but the stretching, breathing, and less vigorous exercise is great for creating flexibility, which we know is a component of staying more active later in life. But it also, exercising at that slower rate is a really good fat burner. That is a great way to metabolize the fat stores in your body as energy. So you all know about how to figure out if you're in aerobic or non-aerobic activity. You take 220, subtract your age, and then times 80% for aerobic, and times 65 to 70% for non-aerobic. And that's your heart rate.
Could you say that again? 220
Minus your age, times 80% for aerobic, 80 to 85, depending on your fitness. And that's your target rate for 10 to 15 minutes every day or 5 days a week. And then 220 minus your age times 65 to 70% for non-aerobic or to metabolize stored fat, which we all want to do.
Otherwise, you're using the protein or the muscle.
You can break down muscle. If you do too much aerobic exercise that's not balanced by, then you would really need to increase your protein intake. It's like working with athletes. You increase the protein intake, increase the nutrient intake. Okay?
You said
Yeah.
the slower the exercise, the more you rid yourself of fat.
Yeah, and you want to do the times 65 to 70%. You want to do that for 20 to 30 minutes, 4 times a week. Women have to go a minimum of 4 times a week. Men can get the same results 3 times a week, which, you know. In the old days when there were a lot of famines, we survived longer, but I don't know that these days that's a really good survival tool. So daily activity, doing exercise, getting out and about for even 10 or 15 minutes at a time, several times a day, is as effective as going to the gym and working out for an hour to an hour and a half.
Can you repeat the times for
Oh,
each of those?
Yeah. Aerobic for 10 to 20 minutes, depending on your fitness level, your stamina, and your health.
Okay.
And then for anaerobic exercise for 20 to 30 or 40 minutes, depending again on your stamina, fitness, and health. And for women, it has to be at least 4 times a week. Yeah. Exercise regularly and exercise your mind. We all know that is really important. Learn new activities, keep your skills set up. It's good to be trying out new things all the time and stay interested. At least 8 hours of sleep a night, at least.
For everyone.
For everybody. Isn't that, I know, who does that? Who sleeps 8 hours a night in this room? Yeah. Babies, children, and a few of us, probably a small percentage of people in this room. The reason sleep is so important is that's the time where your body rebalances, repairs, replaces. It also tends to help your nervous system be more effectively buffered from the effects of stress in daily life. You're much more able to manage stresses without a negative impact on yourself if you've had adequate sleep. Our judgment's better. Yeah.
Can you compensate by taking naps?
You can actually compensate some by taking naps. Naps are really restorative. Napping for 15 to 30 minutes or more, once or twice a day. Look what kids do. They do that all the time.
I've heard about this 90-minute force cycle aspect of sleep. Can you elaborate on that? And is it possible to even know that you're doing that?
It's not possible unless you go to a sleep center and you get wired with, and they monitor you while you sleep, which I'm not sure you're sleeping as well as you normally do when you're in that setting. So this is always the give and take of that kind of a study. I think we all know, how many of you know when you wake up in the morning if you've had a good night's sleep? You can feel it. You can feel, it's easier to get out of bed. You feel more yourself from the minute you wake up. It's easy to tell if you've had a good night's sleep, and it's easy to tell when you haven't. And especially, I don't know about you all, but when I'm really stressed and I'm not managing it well, I will dream my stressor.
Yes.
And so I wake up in the morning and I've dreamt all night that I'm working on whatever it is that's bugging me, and that is not a good night's sleep. Yeah.
That's that REM sleep, right, where your body goes into lockdown so you can't move, but there's all kinds of action going
all kinds of action. Yeah, it's like a movie. So you want a good night's sleep. And ways to do that are to make sure that when you go to sleep, you're sleeping in a dark room, that you're not overstimulating your brain right before bed. So working up to the minute you go to bed, not such a great idea.
No computer, no news.
No computer, anything that you find really stimulating, aggravating, or irritating, try and have a half hour free of all of that before it's time to go to bed. Make sure that your bed is comfortable and cozy and you want to crawl into it. So, you know, make sure the room is comfortable and a nice cocoon. Use smells, because smells go directly from our nose into our ancient brain where those endorphins and enkephalins and other hormones are released that can help make your sleep deeper and more restful. So herbs like lavender. And you can take and I do what my great-grandmother did and put sachets of lavender in with all my sheets and pillowcases. So when you put them on the bed, they have a little smell of lavender. I find it a comforting smell. It's annoying to some people. Lemon verbena is another smell that is really calming for people. Rose. And you can make sachets or use sprays or take the essential oil, put it on a cotton ball, and tuck it between your pillow and pillowcase. Practice breathing as you fall asleep. Do that visualization in your head of letting every muscle from your toes to your head relax. As you breathe and breathe out, relax the muscles on your toes and your feet and your legs, your knees. Move up your body. And you'll find your body sinks into bed and just lets go, and it's easier to fall asleep. Yes?
I wanted to mention wearing a mask, because if you look at your bedroom, the alarm clock has a light on it, the smoke alarm has a light on it, there's light coming in from the window, and it's, when you say dark room, you really mean dark room.
I mean as dark as you can get it to be and without any blinking or bright light coming from anything. So as dark as you can get it, because that's a signal for your brain that it's sleep time. And these are all tools that are useful for people who have difficulty sleeping or falling into the deeper levels of sleep. We are much clearer in our thinking, have better judgment, and get work done in less time more effectively in less time, as well as play more effectively in less time when we've had enough sleep. And we all know about love and purpose and meaning. It's whatever way it is that you have as an individual to connect with yourself and the world around you and feel like it matters that you're here. You need to be able to love someone and to receive love back. It's really important for all of us. We are humans and we were made for that. And yeah, I don't need to say much more. I think we all know that one. So let's talk about herbs for immune function. There are lots of different forms to use herbs in. I'm a fan of water infusion, especially for immune herbs. But if you're really sick, you may want to get a form that's more dense, and I'll talk a little more about that. You can do syrups, which are a sugar concentration. Sugar is a preservative for herbs. So a concentration of the herb in a syrup form, which is easy to get into kids and adults like me. Solid extracts, where the herbs are cooked down into a concentrated form. So it's the proportion, the density of the herb to the diluent or whatever's used to extract the herb that gives you the strength of the herb product. So what that means is a water infusion where you're using a little herb with a lot of water is a more diluted form. safer for children, pregnant women, or people who have decreased immune function. Plus, water is a carrier, as I've said before, and moves it throughout your body. Solid extracts, they've concentrated the herb down to a 2-to-1, 4-to-1, even 10-to-1 concentration, 10 parts of herb to 1 part diluent. So that makes it very concentrated and very strong. Great way to get in the effects of a concentrated herb. So for example, believe it or not, blueberry preserves are a solid extract. You've taken how many pounds of berries and cooked them down into what's in 4 to 6 jars, right? That's a solid extract, and that's a very concentrated form. So to get the benefits of that form of berries, you only need to eat a tablespoon or 2 versus a cup or more of fresh berries.
What would be the difference with the cooking process and heat being destroyer of enzymes and nutrients?
Well, you're going to lose some of the enzymes, but actually some of the nutrients are more available in berries if they're frozen or cooked, because it's a huge molecule. It's huge. It's really hard to break down. And so you want some fresh, but also eating it when it's partially digested already. Those bonds are broken. Means you absorb some of the anthocyanidins much more effectively to build healthy vascular system. Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't realize freezing would do that.
Freezing does that. Freezing breaks some of those bonds. Yeah. I love chemistry. I'm sorry I talk about chemistry a lot. Yeah.
About these vacuum bags. We've been talking about that. We have so precious little counter space for these kind of gadgets, but
Yeah.
there's they say that prevents a lot more freezer burn and that.
Which does preserve things better. The more air you can get out, air is what's called an oxidizer, and it does promote spoilage or breaking bonds. So if you freeze something without air, it lasts a lot longer than if there's air in the container or the bag. So it's a great idea to get the air out. So those vacuum sealers can do that. Yeah. So solid extracts, tinctures are alcohol extracts of herbs. The plus of the alcohol extract is that they are absorbed almost instantly. As soon as they hit your stomach, within seconds, they're starting to circulate through your system. So when you're really ill, taking a tincture gets you relief much faster than doing a tea does. And the alcohol extracts every constituent in the herb, where water only extracts the water-soluble extracts.
What kind of alcohol do you use?
Well, the companies that we use, that I tend to use organic alcohol that is just, it's like Everclear. For those of you who know that, it's very... You can get it at the liquor store and you can make your own tinctures. And there are books out there that teach you how to do that if you want to grow your own herbs and make your own medicine. The best book I can recommend is called Medicines from the Heart of the Earth. It's on the handout at the end as one of my resources. Medicines from the Heart of the Earth by Cheryl Telgner. It's a great book.
Why do alcohol work better? Why does it work
It's
water?
because alcohol gets into your bloodstream really quickly, and it pulls whatever's with it into the bloodstream. And if it's in alcohol form like that, it bypasses having to go through your digestive system to be absorbed. So if you take powders, capsules, and tablets, that goes into your stomach, starts to break down, but then goes into your intestines, has to be passed through the liver to be detoxified in case there's anything in there that's not so great for you, before it then gets into the bloodstream in its highest concentration.
Doesn't alcohol have to go through the liver?
It does, but the alcohol in the extract sort of come apart as they hit the stomach acid.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Yeah,
So the alcohol portion of it still has to go through the liver.
it does. The herb starts,
herbs
yeah,
go
it's,
to work right away.
you can tell when you take things like echinacea. If you take an alcohol extract of echinacea, your mouth goes numb right away because there are constituents in there that are slightly numbing. And then within 5 minutes to 10 minutes, I can feel the effect in my body. I can feel the effect in my head. My congestion starts to reduce. I feel a little, I always get a little buzz from echinacea, and that might be just my own response to the herb. But yeah.
Use a whole dropper full, the whole vial, and then can you put it in hot tea, or will that damage
You
it?
can put it in hot water, and warm water, hot water is a great carrier. When I take alcohol extracts, I always put them in water because you want that water to dilute the effect of the alcohol and to make it not burn your mouth because that alcohol burns. It has a burning sensation. Yeah.
Can the echinacea tincture be taken sort of as a tonic through the winter if people at your work keep getting sick and it just seems like there's always stuff going around?
Well, you can take it preventively, and there are some instances, but I wouldn't do it every day. Echinacea is made to be taken in periodic doses, but there are herbs that you can take every day, and I'm going to talk about some of those. So elder, flower, and elderberry.
Yeah.
I know the elderberry syrups and elderberry cordials and elderberry is just so delightful. It's easy to take, and it's really helpful for strengthening the mucosal surfaces, which are like our interior skin, that goes from mouth to anus through our entire bodies. So Sambuca strengthens that tissue and helps make it more resistant to the ability so that the virus can't attach and replicate as easily.
Would that be good for diverticulitis?
It's actually good for everything. There are other herbs that are better for diverticulitis, though. Yeah. So I love these, and I do a syrup often just because I like tasting what I'm doing, but I know I'm an herbalist, and so I'm kind of immune to some of the negative tastes. So you can also do capsules and tinctures and everything else. Yeah.
I planted one of those years ago, and it's huge and it's beautiful when it flowers. I don't know if it has berries. It might. I should check it out. But are those the same thing?
If it's black elder, there are a lot, or Sambucus canadensis or Sambucus niger, then yes, it's the medicinal elder, and you can take it to Swanson's. Cut a piece off, take it to Swanson's, and they'll help you identify it.
This grows just wild.
It does. It grows all over this area, all over. Yeah.
You just have to know exactly what you're.
Exactly. And the flowers themselves are incredible. The flowers in a tea form will reduce congestion. And they have what's called a diaphoretic action, which stimulates white blood cell activity and stimulates sweating, which is a detoxification mechanism. And by stimulating the sweating, warming the body up, the virus can't replicate as easily, because viruses like cooler temperatures, which is why you may feel feverish, but if you take your temperature, it's usually even lower than your normal temperature, because the virus will suppress your body temperature, so it's easier for it to replicate and survive. So diaphoretics, you'll see a lot of these herbs I'm talking about have diaphoretic action. We like that with a virus. Yeah, it can be helpful for mouth sores. Licorice root is actually really good for mouth sores. Achillea, which is yarrow, we all know this herb. It grows all over the country. It's a wild herb with a really feathery leaf. A lot of people grow different varieties in their garden. The one that we use as medicine is Achillea millefolium, or million-flowered yarrow, white flowers. it too is diaphoretic, but it's also anti-inflammatory, astringent, which means it pulls water out of your body or into circulation and processing to go out of your body. It tightens membranes, is a good way to put that. Antimicrobial and bitter. This can also be used as a bitter before meals. If you have congestion, I love this in the tea, and I think, here we go. Let's see what these are. Cold and flu tea. This one has a lot of the herbs I'm talking about in it. You can take a little pinch and taste it if you want, or just smell it. I'm going to pass that around. And then we also have relaxing tea for sleep. This is a lovely herbal formula. And this one is a sinus tea. It's for more congestion and achiness and even a little bit of a cough from postnasal drip.
Should ear be taken with water too?
Uh-huh.
It should be.
With water is great. It's one of the best ways to take it. Yeah.
Could you please explain the diaphoretic?
Yes, diaphoretic means it induces sweating. It increases white blood cell activity and actually creates a warming, increases your body temperature just a little bit, which means the virus has more difficulty reproducing and extending its invasion of your body. I guess is the way to put it. Mint, we love mint. Mint is such a great medicine. It does everything. If you have heartburn, I would use spearmint instead of peppermint, because peppermint is a little irritating to the little valve between your esophagus and your stomach. So spearmint has less of that action. It is anti-inflammatory. It also makes the body of a cold or flu. You feel them less. You feel better. It's antispasmodic, relaxes tight muscles, whether it's smooth muscle or skeletal muscle. It's carminative or reduces gas and bloating. Analgesic, takes that ache away. Calming, but focusing. It's one of those herbs that when you smell it, you can feel a little more grounded. That's the effect on the brain. And it's antimicrobial. It's in a lot of natural cleaning products because of its antimicrobial properties. And you use the whole plant. It's a very friendly plant, as any of you who put it in a garden know. It's better confined. You have to teach it boundaries and put it in a pot or something. But, and you can use it as an infusion, drinking it as tea, or as an essential oil. Putting it into hot water, take the essential oil in hot water and breathe it in. Create a little steam tent when your head's all congested and achy. Yeah.
So all parts of the plant, the stems as well as
Stems, leaves. The leaves are the prime part, but the stems also have all the constituents, especially if you're cutting it fresh. Yeah.
Are these teas and infusions, are they supposed to be refrigerated?
No, you just keep them in an airtight container in a dark cabinet. They will lose their efficacy or potency after a few months, so it's better to buy small amounts and rotate them. But if you keep it away from light, which is an oxidant, and heat, you're fine. Just storing it in the cabinet. If you store it in the fridge, the moisture actually can cause it to mildew and spoil. Yeah.
So the leaves are left in or do you just boil it and then strain out?
I don't even boil it. I add, to do an infusion, you just boil or near boil the water and add the leaves into the water, and you can do that with an infusing basket. Do you all know what those are? Infusing basket, or you can put the herbs in and then strain them out before you drink them. Like a French press is good.
But this is the same when you said you store it in the airtight container.
Mm-hmm.
So just that liquid can mold in the refrigerator, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting. And then did you say which one was better for congestion, like a peppermint or a spearmint?
They both work for congestion. They both work really well. Oh, yes?
I've heard of cold infusion. When would you use that?
Cold infusion gets out if the herb has mucilaginous properties to it. So what are called mucopolysaccharides or polysaccharides, like I always have to think of the common name of things. Marshmallow root, and so marshmallow root has those slimy factors, is what I call it when I talk to kids. But those are really good for sore throats. And so you do a cold infusion where you pour the water over it, allow it to sit for 2 to 24 hours, either out on the cabinet or in the refrigerator. And then you just use it and it turns gelatinous. If there's any of the mucopolysaccharide containing herbs in a tea, if you leave it sitting for a long period of time, you'll find it gets a little jelly-like. That's what those parts are, and they're really good for soothing membranes that are irritated. So for sore throats and irritated esophagus, all of those things, we love those herbs, although some people don't like slimy things. So it's always pro or con. So mint, lemon balm. This also is one of those mint family herbs that's really friendly, but it has this lovely lemony flavor to it versus the mint. And this also has carminative action, but it's an antidepressant as well. Yeah. And it's great to drink as a tea here in the wintertime. I do antidepressant teas sometimes where I'll do Melissa with a little rose petal and some ashwagandha, which is with thania, which is, it's an herb that helps you build your resistance to stress, and it lifts your mood a little bit. So, yeah. And herb stores in the area all carry most of these herbs are really common. Tilia, which is linden or lime flower, and again, it's another diaphoretic herb. It's in the cold and flu tea that I passed around, and you use the flowers. And lime trees or linden trees are beautiful trees, and the flowers are intoxicating in their scent. Yeah, and this one has a mild hypotensive action. If you have high blood pressure, it will decrease blood pressure just a little bit. And I use this with feverish colds and flus. If you feel hot and feverish, whether you are or not, this is a really good herb in those presentations. And in tea, it tastes good and it feels good. This one, Eupatorium, also called bone set, is great for flu when you just ache, when you get that deep ache and you feel like you just can't get comfortable, can't even go to sleep because your body aches so much. Some of that in tea it tastes a little bitter. As you see, it's a bitter. It tastes a little bitter, but you mix it with these other herbs and it's very tolerable, but it makes you feel so much better so you can sleep and get better, recover. Astringent is like black tea that's been steeped too long is really astringent because of the tannins. So astringent means your cells are like this next to each other, and astringent tightens that junction between cells, so really tightens all the tissue. And the reason it's a great thing to use, it's good to use whenever you have diarrhea. So it closes the gaps between cells, it tightens tissues, it decreases water loss, so it retains water in the system. And with flus and influenza and colds, the virus likes to travel through your bloodstream through these little between cells. It like crawls through and gets into your bloodstream so it can circulate through your whole body. And astringent tightens those gaps so it can't get through. And it's a protective device. Yeah.
What's the guideline for keeping older dried herbs?
If they're more than than 6 months old, I would smell them and see what they smell like. Look at them and see if they still have any color in them. And that's how you can tell if they're too old or they still have some properties left. Yeah.
While we're on that topic, just I know it's a little off topic, but if you wanted to clip some lemon balm that you saw around, I've heard put it in a paper bag, but how long do you recommend, hanging it somewhere until you can?
Yeah, you can put it in a paper bag and hang it, or you can just tie it up into a bunch and hang it. You want to hang it till it dries out. You can also put it in the oven at about 150 degrees for several hours, and you can tell when it's all dried out, all the moisture's out of it. And then crumble it up and put it into a jar. Yeah.
If you have a dehydrator, it's even better, right?
And a dehydrator will do it for you, yeah, because it's controlled environment. Are we running out of time, Mylene?
We don't care.
Would you go ask the dispensary to put together like a 1/4 ounce of a bitter? Yeah, have them pick a bitter, and we'll send it around. Thank you very much.
That gentleman asked about freezing herbs.
Oh, freezing herbs. You can freeze herbs if, like pesto, for example. You can freeze herbs as pesto. You can freeze them, infuse them, and freeze the ice cubes. They last a month or so. They really lose their potency if kept longer than that. It's not...
Better to dry them.
Yeah, better to dry them. You retain the volatile oils if you dry things properly. And the volatile oils are some of the most medicinal parts of the plant. This herb, if you smell the sinus tea, you can smell thyme, and if you smell this tea, the cold and flu tea, you can smell what's called Erudictation or Yerba Santa. It smells like mountainsides in California in the sun in the afternoon. This grows all over California on the sunny slopes. It's this grayish green sort of folded up leaves that don't look like they have anything to them. It's incredibly medicinal. Great for your lungs, for your respiratory system, anti-inflammatory, bronchodilators. So people who have a tendency to get asthma, it's an herb we often use with asthma.
Do you find that the expectorant aspect of it is overly stimulating to someone who has asthma or bronchial issues? It's like mediated.
It's mediated, and it depends on what you put it with. I don't use it by itself. It's much better in, as I call it, in community, where you mix it with other herbs so you're getting its positive properties drawn out, but not necessarily being overwhelmed by it. Yeah.
I just want to confirm, I bought that in the floral essence little vial, and I was really down and out, and my lungs sounded like accordions, and it didn't take long. I think it was like 24 hours. I was a new person. It was really, really, really good.
It's an amazing herb and really well tolerated by most people. There are times where I don't use it, so it's one of those herbs you want to get to know slowly, so you get to know all of its properties if you're going to experiment with it on your own. But it gives that menthol-y, sort of almost a bitter menthol flavor to teas, which can be a nice grounding note for some of the more floral flavors.
When would you not use it?
I tend to be cautious with people who have really reactive asthma. If in really dry colds, because it is drying. So if you're too dry, you don't want to use it. But if you are unable to expectorate or get mucus out of your body, it actually facilitates that happening. So it's better for wet, damp conditions than really dry conditions.
I have a question about asthma. I know that's not about asthma, but why is it that on many cough syrups, it cautions you if you have asthma to not take it?
Because you can actually exacerbate things.
Because you need to get the mucus out.
Exactly. And some of the over-the-counter products actually can cause more constriction, exacerbate the constriction. Asthma is one of those where you're better off working with somebody who knows how to work with it than trying to do it on your own. And you can learn things on your own because it's your own disease, but you need to be a little more cautious because it's life-threatening. Thyme, one of my favorites, and everybody has this in their kitchen, right?
Yeah.
So if you're ever at home, you're coming down with a cold and you don't know what to do, make some thyme tea, get a bowl of boiling water, and sprinkle some thyme leaves, crumbled thyme leaves into it. Make a tent with a towel or a sheet, and just sit there and drink your tea and breathe in those vapors, and it helps so much. And everybody has it. When I saw a lot of children as patients in my earlier life when I was full-time doc, this is one of those things that at 2 a.m, I could tell people to do. So yeah, it's and it tastes good. Even children will drink this.
I've got a vaporizer.
Oh, perfect.
You can just throw the leaves in the vaporizer?
Leaves and vaporizers don't really work, but you can get some thyme oil and add the thyme oil to the vaporizer and then use that to moisten the air, which also protects you from colds and flus. Yeah. So the oil can be used in them, but not the herbs. It'll just clog things up.
Good.
Yeah.
Are there any herbs that you would recommend only breathing in rather than ingesting? Like is sage okay? We drink sage tea.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Eucalyptus maybe is better inhaled than imbibed, although it wouldn't be harmful. It's kind of a strong herb. Hyssop is one of my favorite for upper respiratory. We're almost out of time, so I want to hit a few more herbs if that's okay, and then I'll be around for questions as long as you need me. Okay, so hyssop, which is just a lovely herb, works well with other herbs and great if there's irritation or inflammation. Thank you so much. So this is the gentian. This is the most bitter there is. And I put it on my hand and taste it. And you will see what a bitter does. It's great. It's very bitter. But this, it actually is, bitters are a little stimulating. It's interesting to see what your body does when you take it. And I'm also an herbalist, so I love the taste of bitter, sour, pungent things. So you have to understand. Nepta catnip, it's a really good herb for teas, colds, and flus, and especially good with children. For those of you who have children, you know how children get just so, they feel bad and they're fussy and achy, and catnip is a lovely herb to use with children. And children and elderly patients tend to respond better to catnip than people who are maybe in their 20s and 30s. What? I grow 2 different bunches. So one is always being decimated and the other one's always growing. And yeah. I grow a lot of it so the cats can have some and I get some. Catmint is not the same thing. Catmint is a little different chemical structure, and it does have some of the same properties. It's not as strong an antiviral. So there you go. And ginger.
Oh, yeah.
So if when you're sick, you're not sure what to use, take a look at your tongue. If your tongue is really white and coated and thick, ginger's good because you have internal cold and damp, and ginger will warm it and rebalance that interior-exterior heat. So fresh ginger root tea, and I have a how to do it, a recipe in the book, in the handout, I think.
Can you just use it in steaming vegetables daily?
Sure, absolutely. Yes, and it has lovely effects on digestive system too. So digestive and immune. And lemongrass, again, you can use it in your cooking, but it makes an amazing tea. And it tastes good. So you can mix it with things like the yerba santa and get a better flavor so it's more tolerable for people who are maybe not as prone to liking odd tastes of herbs. And finally, I think this might be the last one, mullein, which is verbascum. And it is a tonic to the lungs, but it also has an anti-inflammatory, expectorant, and demulcent, healing that sort of slimy quality that I was talking about earlier. That's the demulcent property, and it helps protect your mucosa, reduces inflammation, and it's great to do as a cold infusion or as a hot infusion. The longer the tea sits after you infuse it, the more the verbascum polysaccharides come out.
Seems like it grows in the area. Is that true or not?
It
grows in the...
It grows everywhere, all over the western United States. Yeah, it's great herb. Oh, chamomile, I almost forgot. Chamomile, which does everything. It's a nervine or a tonic to the nervous system. It's a mild bitter for the digestive system. It is an antiviral, antimicrobial, great for the respiratory system. And it tastes good, decreases gas and bloating. It does almost everything. This is one herb I think everybody should have in their cabinet. For the respiratory system, the best way to get those properties are in the volatile oils, which means doing an infusion, adding it to hot water, breathing in the steam, getting the essential oil, which is called azulene or chamazulines, and they're blue. They're the most beautiful blue color. Dropping a few drops of that into a hot water and just breathing that in is amazing. Yes. I'm sorry, what?
I was just wondering if there's any contraindications with any of these, or like you can take all these herbs together, or if that's not.
You can mix them all together. In teas, it's really safe because teas are water formulas. Right. And so you're not pulling out some of the constituents that may conflict or fight with each other.
But if it's not a water-based?
If it's a tincture, then I would read up a little more, get a good reference book, and think about how you were going to put them together. What actions, what properties.
Right.
Most of these are pretty tonic herbs, and tonic herbs tend to be safe. But there are people who are allergic to what's called the Asteraceae family, which is the family that yarrow and chamomile belong to. So, and calendula for that matter. Very small percentage of the population, very small, but there are people who are allergic to those plants. So good reference books, if you're going to play with the herbs, are really helpful, and they're fun too. David Hoffman is a really good resource. He's done a number of books. He's on my list, so yeah. And he's done a number of books. I just use that one a lot. This is the last thing I wanted to talk about is water therapy. And you all know these things. Warming socks are one of my favorite things. The recipe's there. At the first sign of a respiratory infection, do this treatment. It's amazing. And I know it sounds ridiculous. You take a thin pair of cotton socks, get them damp, put them in the freezer for 5 to 20 minutes. Then you pull them onto your feet, make sure your feet are warm. So sometimes I have people warm their feet in a hot soak first. Pull them onto your feet, pull on wool socks over those, and then bundle up. Either go to bed or bundle up on the sofa. And what? Yes. But you know what it does? It actually, it stimulates your body to release more white blood cells, stimulates your lymph system to move those through your body, and it decreases fever and chills, and it really pushes your body to mount a strong defense against any virus. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it works.
Attest to that, it works very well.
Yeah.
But you do want to be very warm.
You need to be warm before you pull those cold socks on, so make sure you've warmed up. I sometimes do a hot bath, have people do a hot bath, and then pull those on, or a hot shower.
I missed the first part. Did you say red socks?
Yes, that you put in the freezer. There's directions in your handout. Yeah, you're welcome. So there you go. Stay hydrated. The hot bath is lovely when you're aching all over and you can't rest or sleep, and you can add herbs or essential oils to the bath. Number one, stay home and go to bed if you start to feel ill. I really don't want you to share. It's wash your hands a lot during the winter. Clean shared areas in your home. Eat soup, drink tea, and give yourself the gift of time to recover. Thank you so much for coming. This was fun. Thanks.
You have another garden in your place?
I have a tiny garden, and all I have in it are flowers and herbs. Flowers for the soul, herbs for the body. Yeah.
It's happy to see you.
Yeah.